Good afternoon, everyone. My presentation is the last one, and I understand you are a bit tired, so I'll try to be brief. Yes, my name is Kristian. I'm a linguist. So I see most of the people come from all the fields. I'll do my best to simplify the terminology and make it easy to understand. So, yes, my research focus is on West Polesian. So I'm going to introduce a bit the area and the language type, whatever you want to call it. Why is so interesting for linguistics. And then we're going to start at a concrete phenomenon, suppletion. And we're going to see how it works in all the Slavonic languages. And I'm going to use my data from fieldwork to challenge some traditional assumptions that we have in linguistics about suppletion, which is the phenomenon I'm going to deal with. So West Polesian is an Eastern Slavonic variety spoken in the microregion of Polesia in Poland, southwestern Belarus, mostly Brest region, and the adjacent area in Ukraine, as you can see from the map. This area is very marshy, so those marshes have isolated the villages for centuries. That has contributed to preserve all the stages of the common Slavonic language and culture, although there are some innovations that probably, as far as I know, the literature is not very concerned with them. But on the 70s, 80s, the first paved roads started being built. So people that used to live in those close villages start traveling to the cities. And so many young people emigrate and they have to study in Russian or Belarusian. The schooling is mostly in Russian. They listen to the radio in Russian and Belarusian. So we see a language changing. So we've got around them different standardized languages, Ukrainian, Polish, Belarusian, Russian, that are being absorbed by them, and we could see this area as a crossroad between different standards, and so the system becomes crazy. That's why West Polesian is so exciting for linguistics. Yes, my main focus in linguistics, in my research, is typology. What is typology? What is this word? Typology basically studies different patterns across languages, things that repeat across languages. And so we try to see which things are common or more predictable or likely to happen in languages, and which things are weird and unlikely to happen. So that way we can kind of guess probably there are some limitations in our brain that don't lead us to this or that, or maybe this has to do with our phonetic apparatus. There are some sounds that we can more easily confuse or not. So what does typology have to do with my research? I study different phenomena that differ from standard Belarusian in all those varieties. Those are the villages I've been working at. And I just don't document as a dialectology. Like this village says kun, next village says kun, next village says pon. This is part one. The part two is what those unusual phenomena teach us about language in general. So I'm going to be referring to the noun here, which is quite interesting in terms of linguistics. I've been twice doing fieldwork in Belarus. The first time was for 6 months, and now I just came back on Thursday night and finished my second expedition in Western Polesia. So let's go to the main question of this talk. Why do West Polesian have the most original anniversaries in Europe, or at least in the Slavonic family? Well, if one happens to travel to West Polesia during someone's anniversary, you will observe with amazement or maybe desperation how they refer to their anniversary. So you interview a lady and she might say, oh, how long have you been living to this place? She said 56 roku years. And they're, oh yeah, but today I'm very happy because my granddaughter is turning 1 old year. I said, yeah, but my daughter is 24 rocky years. But yeah, her partner is 35 years. I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay, that's great. So I'm turning 28 this year, but will it be Lied, Roku, Adolf, Hod, or Rik? So that's the interesting of this topic. Basically, the noun here tends to be suppletive in many Slavonic languages. What does suppletion mean? Suppletion means that a word, word has different forms, different lexical roots in different contexts. So, for example, in English, most adjectives have the comparative form with er, so smart, and quick. But then we've got good, and you kind of say gooder. That's wrong. You need to use a different lexical root. That's basically, in few words, what suppletion is. Same thing for Russian. You can say один год, but you can say 5 годов. You can in Belarusian, but not in Russian. So I said, In theory, suppletion is a non-canonical topic in typology. So basically, language economy, that folk belief that exists about what is language economy says that every word just has one form and it can have different meanings. If there are two forms, they have different meanings. There are no pure synonyms because otherwise it's unbearable for a human brain to store all these things. Well, we're going to see how these data from fieldwork can challenge those conceptions that we have about suppletion. So I decided to look at these words, make a sort of research across all the Slavonic languages, what is happening. So Southern Slavonic languages don't reveal anything interesting, but then we come to Western Slavonic languages like Czech and Polish, and we see that they also are depending on the numeral that is governing them. So 1, 2 to 4, or 5 to 20, the noun year adopts a different form. Same for Russian, although not for Ukrainian and Belarusian. And these are the ideal patterns. These are all the possibilities that West Polesian presents. If we see West Polesian D and A prima are all innovations that don't exist in any other Slavonic variety. And then, for example, you can see C is what you would expect to find in Russian, or B would be Belarusian, or E what you find in Slovak and Ukrainian. So, yeah, it is tempting to say, well, it's just a matter of influence of different languages, but how do we explain those innovations? In any case, as I said, it is a very ideal reconstruction of the system. The reality is that a single speaker within the same conversation uses, with no apparent motivation, all those patterns at the same time, which is a very unusual situation. Yes. So, what do we learn about suppletion? Well, traditionally, it was believed that, and it's still quite effectively, the people say that suppletion is a strategy to kind of save or rescue those words that otherwise are defective, that words that you wouldn't be able to say. So, for example, because you're not allowed to say gooder, there's suddenly a blank that needs to be filled. So suppletion is like Superman comes and saves the paradigm. The second conception, traditional conception of suppletion would be that suppletion aligns with a major semantic category. So, in few words, for example, if we observe that suppletion tends to happen with past and verbs, for example, in English, you say jump, jumps, or climb, climbs, and then we've got examples like go, went. Well, we would expect to find other verbs following the same pattern. That would repeat with more cases. But data from fieldwork show that this is actually not very true. First of all, in this case, suppletion is caused by an intrusion of different words and different systems. So it's a collapse of so much information, so many systems getting to the same area, probably. There's no lexical motivation. So for the speakers, it's the same thing to say rik, liet, or hot. They mean exactly the same. There's no difference, apparently, in all the corpus that I'm analyzing, there's no difference between ages. So young people, for example, who would be more exposed to Russian because of school age, it doesn't matter. I've got people actually from down over 90 years old that if you listen to them, it's just fascinating. Same thing for the style. It's nothing to do with formal or informal because West Polesian is mostly oral, and the context where I took the recordings, it was actually I wasn't eliciting those styles, and they come all from texts and conversations they are having with their friends. So there's no motivation for that, just to say that it's just words that entered into the system. So, for example, this noun, the same speaker is saying, my dad spent 3 years and then hold up. So she's using the same roots, two different roots for the same thing, for no apparent reason. There's another assumption that I would like to contradict. That's, we say, if we find, for example, in the past tense or with the plural singular, it would be very likely to find in other places. This could explain, for example, why in Russian we say "gad get" and not "gad over" in Polish. But the words "rod," "hud," "hod," and "rib" are available for any numeral and almost under any circumstance I've been able to analyze. So before the noun, after the noun, with, for example, comparatives, with, for example, collective numerals, all those show that this assumption that we had was ineffective. So for example, this from the same speaker, he's like 80-something, and he's saying, oh, we will say to me, 40 years, so 40 years, but then he said, oh, changing the root. And then that, the Vinostat Roki. So same speaker using, for not current reasons, all those forms. Basically. What I wanted to do with this presentation, this is just one of the topics of my research. I'm doing other things, but I wanted to show how a specific lexical item can help us understand how suppletion works in the Slavonic family and cross-linguistically. I have explained a bit the origin, what was happening in West Polesian, the socio-linguistic situation, how these could maybe explain partly why the linguistic system is so complex, especially for the noun here. And then, I wanted to criticize some of the assumptions we had in suppletion traditionally. And what I want to conclude is that we need a new redefinition of suppletion, a definition that is more inclusive, that can take account of the phenomena that we see in West Polesian. Thank you very much. And I would like to shortly, if anybody wants to follow the research, you've got a YouTube channel, you can follow on Twitter or WordPress. You can come and talk to me later. I'll be very happy to point you out. Thank you very much for your attention.